We're live, people. We're live. My name is Alam, and this is another In Motion football stream brought to you to talk about the NFC East. So, this is the NFC East divisional preview. For those of you guys that don't know, I'm an Eagles fan, so this is a big one for me for sure. Shout out to everybody watching this. Shout out to the people watching live. Shout out to the people watching the replay. However, you're watching this, your viewership is appreciated, and a reminder, as always, that as a viewer of content on YouTube, you have the ability to help channels get bigger. So, staying engaged in the form of likes, subscriptions, comments, shares, all these things help channels get bigger, help the person making the content on the channel. It's going to help them do more content. So if you enjoy what you're watching, make sure you support it so that I can give you more of it. With that being said, we're going to get right into it. By this time, you guys probably know how this works. We're going to go through each team within the division. We're going to talk about the offense and the defense initially as two separate things, and then just generally tying it together to give my thoughts on the team. So, without further delaying it, we're going to get right into the first team for the day, which is the Washington Commanders. The Washington Commanders are a team with a fair bit of continuity from last year. If you look at what they were last year, they were a team whose record was average 8-1. But if you look at how they got to that record, to be honest, they persevered through pretty suspect quarterback play. Obviously, Carson Wentz. Eagles fans are going to know how to feel about his quarterback play, as most football fans probably do as well. Carson Wentz is not good at playing the quarterback position at this point. Taylor Heineke is a backup. So prior to that last game against Sam Howell, they were not getting good quarterback play, but they managed to get to 8-1. So what does that mean? It means the team is good. Now, the quarterback position itself is still a question mark because you still can't say that you know what you're getting with Sam Howell. He is a player that's going to play his second start ever in week one this year. So we don't know what we're exactly going to get from Sam Howell, but I feel like we can safely say we know what we're going to get from the rest of this team. The receiving core, the top three guys returning from last year, Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, and Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin is amazing. I think Curtis Samuel is a solid guy to have, and I think Jahan Dotson's good and will get better. So wide receiving core is good. It's not a weakness by any means. It's something that should allow you to do some good things and be a threatening team, right? The offensive line, a lot of continuity from the team last year. The offensive line last year was good. This isn't an offensive line that's going to look like the Eagles' offensive line or anything like that, but a good offensive line that'll get the job done. The tight end room is fairly steady, and the running back room, while it's a good room, I think it's not a diverse room. I think they have a pretty obvious, like a pretty consistent set of traits that they get from the running backs. They're gonna get downhill runners from that room. I think they could stand to get a different kind of running back to kind of just open the room up and allow them to do more things with those running backs, but they're still fine in that regard. And then really, like, it brings us having all that said, it brings us to the two figures that are most important for how this offense is going to fare next year. That's Eric Bieniemy and Sam Howell. Eric Bieniemy is a guy who is going to get complete reign of the offense. He's the offensive coordinator on a team with a defensive head coach, so he is going to run that offense entirely. He is somebody who's obviously been playing under Andy Reid, so we don't know exactly how much of what we've seen as Kansas City has to do with him, how much it has to do with Andy Reid. Obviously, Andy Reid's the coach, so it's going to be a lot Andy Reid. We just don't know exactly the percentage, but what we can say is that Eric Bieniemy is a guy who people are opinionated about. There's a lot of good that's been said about Eric Bieniemy, and there's a lot of bad that's been said about Eric Bieniemy from different kinds of figures. And you ultimately are left feeling like it's hard to get a finger on the pulse of exactly what's going on with Bieniemy, but we're going to know for sure. Something to know about him is obviously he's a running back. He was a running back himself, and that's like his approach to the game from a football standpoint. You look at what happened in Kansas City. You have a generational quarterback and an amazing arm talent, and Andy Reid, a coach who likes airing the ball out. But with this Washington team, I think it's going to have to look different. If you look at how they beat the Eagles last year, they beat the Eagles being a ball control offense, running the football, not for big explosive runs, but just for consistently running 4 to 5 yards as you get the opportunity to. So I think they I think they have the ability to be good. I just don't know if they're going to do it the way they did last year with a better play caller, or if they're going to attempt to be a very different offense. And I think if they do that, they might not see the success that they could out of this team. And that's mainly just because there's a difference between Sam Howell and Pat Mahomes. Like, I like Sam Howell. I think he has promise to be a starting caliber quarterback for sure. I don't know how good he's going to be. I don't know exactly like what his ceiling is as a quarterback, but I would doubt that his ceiling is top 10 quarterback. So if they're happy with having kind of a quarterback outside of the top 10 as their quarterback going forward, then they have their guy. But we'll see how things work for this organization. It's an organization in flux because they had an ownership change. But what I expect from the offense is more of the same, but with slightly more upside. That's how I would put it. I think they'll be a little bit better than last year, but um, again, it's mainly the same team as from last year. And Sam Howell and Eric Bieniemy, I think, will ultimately do better than their OC last year and the quarterbacks they had playing last year. So that's that on the offense. Looking at the defense, again, it's a unit that does have a fair bit of continuity. We didn't get to see much of Chase Young last year. They declined his fifth-year option, so we'll still see what we get to see from Chase Young this year. But I don't think um, even they view him as the same game-changing pass rusher that he used to be. But that being said, they still have a very good front seven. He doesn't have to do much of the carrying on his own. Montez Sweat is really good. Deron Payne is really good. Jonathan Allen is really good too. So they're gonna have an imposing defensive line. Their linebackers, as far as I know, have kind of always just been like steady guys that just do a role and keep it pushing. And I think they do have a fair bit of that on this defense. They have a secondary that is again pretty similar to what they've had last year. Obviously, the addition of Emmanuel Forbes, but Kendall Fuller, Cameron Curl, Derek Forrest, and Benjamin St. Juste, all players that we saw last year. So you add Emmanuel Forbes, you add Jartavius Martin, you have the ability to get better this year. So this is this is how I look at Washington as a whole. There's so much continuity from last year with the addition of pieces that add to the upside. So I do think that you look at how the Commanders fared last year as an 8-1 team, and there is reason to believe that they are a better team. Now that doesn't automatically translate to more wins. The NFL isn't so linear or simple, but I do expect this team to be a better team than last year. And they were, I think, the team with the worst record and in the best division in football, a division where three of the teams made the playoffs. And frankly, three of the teams in that division were some of the better football teams in the conference as a whole. The Giants went and beat the Vikings. The Dallas Cowboys were a team that could beat a lot of the teams in the NFC East. So they had an 8-1 record in a very tough division, and I think they got better. Again, it's tough though because they remain in that tough division. They obviously still have they're still going to have those tough divisional games. I don't know exactly what their schedule looks like. They have a last place schedule, so maybe that's going to help. But it's just tough to think that like, well, are they going to be 10-6? Because at that point, like someone in the NFC East has to falter, and who is it going to be? So it's tough. I don't know how many wins what they've done to their team is going to result in, but I do think they've gotten better for sure. So pretty simple stuff for the Commanders. Again, a team with a lot of continuity and some additions with higher ceilings than what they had before in the places of the team that they have changed. So that's where we're at with the Commanders. We're going to move on to the Cowboys as the second team in this division to talk about. The Cowboys, I think, are a fascinating prospect to look at. If you're going to talk about their offense, I guess the first place to start is the offensive coordinator position. So Kellen Moore is gone. Schottenheimer is here. Thing to consider is that the play calling duties are going to go from the offensive coordinator position to Mike McCarthy, the head coach. So Mike McCarthy, a coach that obviously has a Super Bowl and obviously has spent a lot of time in Green Bay, but is a play caller that I think a lot of Packers fans were fed up with towards the end of the year. From what we've heard so far, there's a pretty clear philosophy change that's supposed to happen with the Cowboys. Apparently, they're supposed to become a much more run-first football team. Apparently, Yeah, they're not going to be a team that's going to air it out the way they were last year. They have Tony Pollard, obviously, a running back that's fared pretty well, but I don't know exactly if they have the personnel to play that way. Now they have Rico Dowdle, undrafted rookies from 2020, so I'm not necessarily sure how good or not he is, but as an undrafted player, if you hadn't made a name yet in your first 4 seasons, 3 seasons, I guess, is it gonna come now? I'm not sure, but I don't think so. Uh, Hunter Lupke, I mean, sure, he might be good. Undrafted rookie from this year, maybe. Obviously, Deuce Vaughn is. I like Deuce Vaughn, but if you look at Deuce Vaughn and Tony Pollard, like, is that the running back room that you're gonna give 35 rushes to every week? And are you gonna see that work? I'm not sure that makes a whole ton of sense, and I'm not sure that that is even what they're gonna do. I think the run first rumors might be a little bit overstated. I still think they're built to throw the football, and I think they will throw the football. And to be honest, I don't know if that's going to be also in their best interest. I think they should have built the team around running the ball, and they should have added a better second back than Deuce Vaughn when it comes to running the football between the tackles. So as this offense is set up right now, obviously, the receiving core, the big addition is Brandon Cooks. I think Brandon Cooks is obviously a very well established player, somebody who is cash. He's good money for 1,000 yards. He's going to be obviously he's supposed to be a field stretcher for this offense. Now, I don't know how much age has impacted him. The years that he's been in Houston, that they've been really bad. I haven't been keeping track of his production or his ability, better say his ability and how his body has changed as he's gotten older and dealt with injuries and whatnot. But in theory, he should be a good field stretcher. Michael Gallup joined, I think, started playing last year off of a major knee injury in the middle of the season. I don't think he ever really got into the swing of things. I think he needed some time to knock some rust off. And hopefully this is the year from the Cowboy standpoint. Hopefully it's a year that he gets going, because if he continues from where he left off last year, I don't know exactly how happy Cowboys fans are going to be with Michael Gallup, because I don't think he's living up to the contract or his role in the offense. Obviously, this is a team that had Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb a couple years ago. That's a solid one too. But Gallup and Lamb, I don't think it's as fearsome. So look, their weapons are fine. I think CD is phenomenal. I think CD is going to be great next year. I think there's a chance that Cooks and Gallup are just good. The offensive line, they just paid Terrence Steele. They have Tyron Smith, left tackle, who I think has been pretty banged up in the last year or so. But obviously, Tyler Smith was great last year. Biadish is good, and Zach Martin is elite. So the offensive line is looking good. It looks like it should be a strength for them next year. Like, that part of the team is built to run the ball, I think, the way the rumors suggest they're going to. I just don't know if they have the running backs. And to throw the ball, frankly, I just don't think they have the quarterback, because the common theme with the Cowboys is always that, look, they're going to do a good job of putting a team together, but are they going to have the quarterback and the coach to get the job done? For me, that's that's what I've seen from the Cowboys like my whole life. I'm gonna feel very good about the quarterback you have. The whole team outside from quarterback and head coach, I'm gonna feel very good about. But it's that part of the team that I'm gonna expect the letdown to happen. So that's the thing of, like, looking at coach and quarterback. I don't think they have the quarterback to air the ball out, and I don't think the coaches put the team together to run the ball the way maybe they're supposed to this year. So that's just what it is, man. Like, the Cowboys are going to be very good, but something's going to happen. There's some hitch that's going to happen that makes things fall apart, because that's just what always happens with this team. So pretty simple stuff for how I feel about that. I think the Cowboys offense is going to fare pretty well. Dak is probably going to be where they run into problems, and their season is going to end the way it tends to end. That's where we'll leave off with the offense. I see that we've been rated from Sarcasm City, so shout out to Flawless as always. Shout out to everybody trickling in here from Sarcasm City. I know you guys just got redirected from what was it, doing the most. So I'm sure you guys enjoyed your football content. This is a very different football content. I do American football content here on this channel. So everybody trickling in from Sarcasm City who's into American football, definitely stick around. Stay tuned into the channel because a lot of content coming in here. A lot of your favorite people from Sarcasm City will be making appearances on this channel. And if you're not interested in American football at all, and you're just gonna, close this stream and carry on with your night, man, make sure you drop a like, drop a sub while you're in here before you're on your way out. Yeah, just starting this channel from the ground up. Lots of content coming in the future. Shout out Manj, my brother, as always. Um, but yeah, if there's anyone from Sarcasm City that would want to make an appearance on this channel, also feel free to hit up the chat. I'll find a way to get in touch with you. But we'll pivot from this point to the Dallas defense, which, like again, it's going to be a strong point of the team. They have Dan Quinn. They have a very good defensive coordinator. Their coaching is going to be good. Their personnel is going to be good. The thing about the Cowboys defense, right, is that like year in, year out, it's always the same thing for me. Like they're going to play some guys that I've never heard before. Those players that I've never heard before are going to be good. They're going to be a perfect scheme fit, and the defense is just going to function well, right? Like Donovan Wilson, Ron Curse, two players at the safety position I had no idea about last year who played a lot and played well, right? So their safeties are going to be decent. Malik Hooker obviously got a deal. He's a pretty good player for them. He was a highly rated college player. Trevon Diggs and Stephon Gilmore are going to be doing great on the outside. Jordan Lewis is going to do well on the inside. Their linebackers, I guess they lost Overshown to a torn ACL. That's gonna suck. But like with Leighton Vander Esch and Damone Clark, they'll probably be at least average at that spot, and that is like the least impactful position. At least that's how NFL teams treat it. So that's not so bad. You know what you're gonna get edge rusher wise from DeMarcus Lawrence and Michael Parsons. The inside of their defensive line is where I think it could not be that great, right? And the reason it could not be that great is because these, I don't think this unit was all that good last year. I think it was good situationally. Like it wasn't the easiest team to run on, but it also wasn't particularly a big part of the reason that they were difficult to run on when they were. I think they drafted Mozzie Smith for a reason. And I think the thing with Mozzie Smith is I think he might struggle early and figure things out as he goes on later in his career. And the reason I say that is because look at the nose tackles that we've seen enter the NFL, even the highly rated ones. So like Dexter Lawrence and Quinnen Williams, right? Those are like the elite nose tackles. And even for them, it took them 2 years to actually get integrated into their teams and be the high impact player that they were drafted to be. So I look at Mozzie Smith and I'm like, that's not somebody who's better than Quinnen Williams or better than Dexter Lawrence. Mozzie Smith is not on that level. So I wouldn't be surprised if he runs into the same issues. And if that's the case, Jonathan Hankins is cool. Neville Gallimore is cool. Osa is cool. Like that part of the field isn't a particular strength. So between the linebackers and the potential for that part of the field to not be a strength, they might be a team you can run the ball against at times. They might have to stack the box to stop the run. And then at that point, if Trevon Diggs and Stephon Gilmore are on an island, I think they're probably comfortable. But Diggs is a player that can be gotten at because he's overly aggressive. Gilmore is a player that he's in his 30s. So again, like the regression could hit at any point at all. So yeah. That's the thing. Like as a whole, this unit will be good. This unit, I don't think is going to be the reason why the Cowboys season ends. That'll be Dak Prescott's. That's his. That's something he's going to be responsible for. So that's what it is with the Cowboys. Pretty good team. And honestly, just like it's more of the same that I've seen for my whole life. Like for the past 20 years that I've been following American football, the story is usually the same with Dallas. Good team. They go about playing the game wrong, and their quarterback usually lets them down because they get stuck around with even after they show that they're not cut out to be the quarterback that Dallas wants them to be. So that's what it is with Dallas, people. I'm going to pivot now from Dallas to the Eagles. Before I get to that, shout out to all the people from the raid that have stuck around. I definitely appreciate the viewership. make sure you smash the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And yeah, stay tuned because I'm going to be doing a lot of streams on this channel. So this brings us to the Eagles. And for those of you who aren't familiar, this is my team. So on this channel, I talk about the league as a whole because I just love the NFL. I love college football. I love American football as a whole. But this is my team. This is where, like, frankly, this is probably the team of all my teams. So this is the Raptors, Chelsea, Canada basketball, all the teams I cheer for. This is the one that really that brings me the most joy. So I look at the team, man. This is the team that got to the Super Bowl last year and lost, and that happened for a reason because it is really good. If you look at the receiving core, AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, what a 1-2 punch. Two players that do very different things, and for that reason, it's difficult to put together like one scheme as a defense that will effectively deal with both, right? Two players that I think are so good at winning down the field that like that's something we can structure our offense around because Jalen Hurts doesn't have to be a perfect quarterback at throwing the football deep down the field for this part of the Eagles game plan to work. He can throw deep to a contested AJ Brown and a contested Devontae Smith, and they'll go up and get the ball at a reasonably high rate. That's a part of what they do. So that helps the Eagles offense a lot, man. Those players are amazing. Our tight end, Dallas Goedert, is a player that I think has a potential to be one of the best tight ends in the NFL. He just hasn't managed to get it together, right? He's had injuries here and there. He hasn't been able to reach his top potential yet. I think maybe there's a chance now that he's getting into his late 20s. If he doesn't get a year together, it might never happen. But it's difficult in this offense with AJ Brown and Devontae Smith to have Dallas Goedert get the volume of targets that he would need to do that. So kind of not necessarily something that's his fault from that standpoint. Injuries aren't his fault either. But yeah, he's a player who, as good as he is, there's potential for him to be even better. Hopefully we see that this year. But AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, that's three amazing targets for a quarterback. Honestly, we can probably cope with an injury to either one of them because of the other two. And we don't need much out of our fourth, fifth, or sixth guys by any means at all. So puts everybody else in an easy position. This part of our offense is really, really elite. And this is, I think, a foundational thing in why we're good. The other foundational thing is the offensive line. These guys are amazing. They're not just great, they're also really athletic for who they are. Jordan Mailata, if you haven't seen his highlights, Jordan Mailata is from New Zealand. He grew up playing rugby. He was drafted to the Eagles and essentially taught the sport of football. So prior to his NFL career, if you look up his rugby highlights, this guy was like 6'5", 300 pounds, and just a freak athlete that could run faster than everybody as well. So his rugby highlights are hilarious. He's amazing. He's turned into a great left tackle. Landon Dickerson is unreasonably athletic for his size. He's like 340 pounds and ridiculously athletic. Jason Kelsey, obviously, you know what the deal is with him. He's elite. Lane Johnson on the right, it's the same story. Now, the transition from our team last year to this year, one of them was the right guard position. So Isaac Seumalo, our right guard from last year, is on Pittsburgh now. He's replaced by Cam Jurgens, a second-round pick from last year. So a second-year player who is essentially he spent his whole rookie year learning to play this position and to be ready to replace him. So the initial signs are that he's playing pretty well and he's well positioned to replace Isaac Seumalo, but we'll see how that goes. Obviously, you can't take for granted that a young player is going to figure out how to do things immediately. But man, we have a very good offensive line. We have very good weapons for Jalen Hurts. Obviously, like when it comes to Jalen Hurts itself, my opinion on Jalen Hurts is that like people are a little bit too caught up with forcing him into the mold of like older quarterbacks or like the older way of looking at quarterbacks. You can't box him into that like way of looking at the quarterback position because I think he's such a unique player. He's very much the future of the position. And the way I'll describe that is that are using his words. So he calls himself a triple threat. And what he means by triple threat is that like I can beat you with my arm, my legs, and my mind. Now, I think on face value, you're going to hear that and you're going to hear, okay, he's a smart guy. But a lot of people, I don't think, understand the offense well enough to actually like get to what that means. What he means by being a triple threat and like he can beat you with his mind is that so much of what the Eagles do offensively is that we're going to do multiple things on the exact same play. And Jalen Hurts, in the heat of the, like in the line of fire, in the heat of the moment, is going to decide what to do. So it's like, as a defense, you have to guard and respect like three different things going at the same time. But Hurts is ultimately only going to pick one, and everything else you do to commit yourself to defend the other things are going to be completely useless. Forcing defenses to have this kind of like all-encompassing view to stopping our offense effectively stops them from concentrating on any one thing we can do as an offense, right? And all this sounds fairly elementary. Like, yeah, of course, this is good, but teams can't do this because you need your quarterback to make the correct decision in a split second every single time, right? Football games usually call for like 60 plays per unit. So like a quarterback is going to be on the field 60 times. They have to get the decision right in a split second every single time or close to it, because you make a mistake, it's going to be a very negative play, could be something that costs you the game. So it's like with Jalen Hurts, people I think can be overly analytical of a lot of different things. Something I don't think he gets the respect for is how many times he makes the perfect decision on the field in a split second, right? Because that's what it is. As soon as the play starts, you're having to commit to something within 2 to 3 seconds. A part of that decision is actually seeing what happens in those 2 to 3 seconds. So in a 2 to 3 second time, you're watching what the defense does, you're making a decision of what to do, and then you're actually, as a player, physically executing it, right? The fact that he can do this so reliably, is just a testament to the mind he is, right? He's an amazing football mind. He's the son of a coach. He's somebody who's been running these kinds of offenses for years now, probably going back to high school and even earlier parts of his football life. So Jalen Hurts, man, in the context of what we do as an offense, is unreal. He's unreal. So look, I'm very much behind Jalen Hurts. Pause that for the people that might want to, but I support him big time. I think he's an amazing player, and I think he's going to be a big part of what we do next year. That putting all that to the side, the last thing I have to talk about the running back position is about the offense. Sorry, is the running back position. So this is a very different part of the team compared to last year. Miles Sanders was basically the bell cow back last year. So for those who aren't familiar with that expression, meaning he was the guy. He was the person who was getting all the work and all the responsibilities in that position. This year, we've positioned the team to be very different. So it's going to be a committee now at that position. You're going to see Rashad Penny, Kenny Gainwell, and DeAndre Swift all pitching in to that position and all doing it in different ways. Rashad Penny obviously is kind of our home run hitter as a runner between the tackles. I think Kenny Gainwell is our steady, like consistent runner between the tackles. And DeAndre Swift is our elite outside runner slash receiving back. So that's where I'm at. Shout out to Philip Bidwell. I'll give you a like, even though I'm not interested in the NFL at all. Man, that's all I could ask for. That's all I could ask for. Shout out to you, Philip. I appreciate it. But yeah, man, the running back position, I actually think because we're a lot more diverse, because ultimately these three guys are going to come together to do a lot more than Miles Sanders could do himself. So because of that, we are going to be, I think, a very effective offense. We are going to be better than we were last year, and that we're going to be a problem for a lot of the other teams in the NFL. Obviously, last year, at times the defense was the issue. The offense was never the issue, and there's a fair reason to believe that we got better. So I'm obviously very pleased with what the offense has shaped out to be for next year. One of the other gaps I guess I could get to before I move on is the backup quarterback position. We've transitioned from Gardner Minshew to Marcus Mariota. Now, Gardner Minshew is a player that I was really frustrated with. I thought he played really bad last year. Mariota, the name is better, but I'll be real. The way he played last year in Atlanta, the way he played in the preseason, he's almost looked worse. Now, you could say he hasn't had an opportunity to play with the starters, and that's fair. So maybe he'll be better. but bro, he's looked so bad, like legitimately bad, um, going into this year. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I think Tanner McKee, the rookie, he's looked pretty good, but Mariota's looked bad. I hope we don't have to see him on the football field at all. Um, I'll move past the offense now and get to the defense. So the defense, I think, is very interesting. The big thing is we've transitioned from Jonathan Gannon to Sean Desai, the defensive coordinator and play caller. So both come from the Vic Fangio scheme. Both are going to run, I think, a similar defense, but from the sounds of it, Sean Desai is going to run a little bit more of a diverse defense with like which is less rigid to like from a philosophy standpoint. Now, what I mean by that is like Gannon's philosophy was very narrow. We ran a lot of the same stuff the whole season, and it was very much just do better at plan A and have no plan B kind of an approach to football, right? I think Sean Desai is going to have a plan A, a B, and a C. There'll be a little bit more diverse from an idea standpoint defensively. But the personnel on the field will be really interesting. It'll be really interesting to see what he does with a lot of pieces. Obviously, on the defensive line, we have a lot of continuity from the edge rusher position. Obviously, the addition of Nolan Smith in the spot of Robert Quinn. I think Nolan Smith obviously will do more for us than Robert Quinn because Robert Quinn did nothing. So it'll be exciting to see Nolan Smith produce in a small role and then kind of get better as he goes on because he's really young right now. The inside of the defensive line, obviously, we needed Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh to save the day last year because this was a weak position after injuries. They're not here anymore. They might join midseason next year as well. I'm not sure, but we've bolstered this part of the field essentially with Jalen Carter. And what a piece to bolster that part of the field with. Jalen Carter is an unreal football player. Obviously, he did not go at the top of the draft because of off the field issues and legal issues and whatnot, but he's amazing at football. He's an amazing athlete. You should not be able to be as athletic as he is at 330 pounds. He just destroys people. What he did in the preseason to Ben Cleveland on the first snap was unreal. He's going to be really good. He's going to be really good now too. It's not going to take 2 to 3 years for his career to develop. He'll be good right now. So I'm so excited to see Jalen Carter play football. I think the fact that he has guys like Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham in that positional room to serve as mentors, the fact that he has his boys, Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean also close like with him in the defense, I think it'll be really, really good. So man, I'm thrilled to watch him. I'm thrilled for him that he found himself in this position. And look, our edge rushers and our defensive tackles are going to be a very big strong point. And man, hopefully this time in the Super Bowl we can get a sack. Where that leaves us, though, is the linebacker position, which is a big question mark. It's a big question mark because both our guys who played last year are gone. Now, I don't think the guys who played last year were anything special. I think Kaiser White was above average, and I think TJ Edwards was good. But this year, obviously, we're rolling with Nakobe Dean, a second-year player who there's question marks on. We don't know. He's young. We don't know how good he is. And then Zach Cunningham, the complete opposite, a guy who is an established veteran who's played in the league for a while, and he's been good. But the question is how good is he still after now having a couple teams give up on him? So it'll be interesting to see how they cope with that. Obviously, they have Christian Ellis, as well. He's a player that I think he seems like he's going to be good, but it might be a little bit early for him. So, like I said, I don't think this position last year was a strength by any means, but it's not a strength. But like, so it's like not this. It's not like the standard is high. I don't need these players to be elite. I just need them to be good. Screw that. Even just be above average, and we're fine. But we'll see what happens. We can't take for granted that they are going to be above average. That'll definitely be a position to watch for, and it'll be something that the Eagles probably have to address mid-season, the way they had to address defensive tackle mid-season last year. So, all things considered, though, the front seven will probably be a strong part of the team. That takes us to the secondary, where I'll start with the corner position because it's simple. We basically have the exact same corners as last year, but with Khalil Ringo and Eli Ricks as our sixth and seventh corner who aren't going to play but are going to develop for the future. So while this position group was good for us last year, obviously you have to look at the fact that Darius Slay is 32 and James Bradbury is 30. So two guys that could start to fall off, because once NFL players, especially cornerback, get to age 30, sometimes just overnight they get bad. It's that physical of a sport. So as players age and as their physical condition drops, that can result in like serious regression. So that's something to watch with Slay and Bradbury, but provided that they don't regress, this unit should be a strong part of our defense again. And like a big part of why this is such a strong unit is because they're good players that are in an advantageous position. Our defensive line makes the cornerback's job easier. So the fact that they have to do an easier job as guys who are capable of playing the position at a high level, even with a less easy job, it's a very good position for them to be in. That takes us to the safety position. So this is again a big question mark. Both the guys that played last year are not here anymore. So one of them was Marcus Epps. Marcus Epps similarly was just a good player, nothing special. And then Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who was amazing but only played half the season because of injury. So the guy who played in his spot when he was hurt last year, Reed Blankenship, is one of our starters this year. So I think he played very well when Gardner-Johnson was gone. I think actually he's better than Epps, so he's better than the other guy, and I think him starting this year is going to be good for us. I think that's something that is going to ultimately not be an issue at all. It's the other position that you have to look at. It's right now Terrell Edmonds and then potentially Sidney Brown, right? It would be really good for us if we're able to have somebody who competes at Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's level, but it's probably not going to happen. Terrell Edmonds, I think, is just an average player, which is fine. It's okay to have an average player sometimes if you have very good players around them. And then Sidney Brown is the question mark, because if he really rounds into form, he's a young player, he's a rookie. If he rounds into form, he could be a great player. He could kind of be almost what Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was. But obviously, the downside is he might not be ready to play yet. It might be a little bit too early for him. So he might also just not be good. A big question mark there, what to expect from such a young player. But as of right now, we don't have to rely on him. We have a player in his position that's, average and will probably get the job done. So, we'll see. I'm hoping he turns out to be great right now. I think he athletically, he's amazing. I've actually never seen a safety like cover ground as quickly as he does. He'll be at a complete like stop. He'll be just standing and then he'll have to run, and he gets to his top speed just like that and then just goes. And like sometimes it feels like he keeps getting faster as he runs. So if he can get the mental side of the game down, I think he could be really good. But again, this defense, right? There's two parts to the defense that have a potential to get worse because of turnover and the players not being there anymore from last year. There's one position where it could get worse because of age. But then like the rest of the defense is, I think, guaranteed to still be very, very good. So there's potential for regression, but there's also potential that this defense is the exact same thing it was last year. And then there's also like a small potential that it could be better. But all things considered, I'm not stressed about the defense. I think we'll be very good. I think we'll be Super Bowl contenders again, and I just hope that we get it done this time, because last year's loss was frustrating to watch. But that's that with the Eagles, people. I will get us to the Giants, which is the last team we'll be talking about this year from this division. Before I get to it, again, a reminder, shout out to everybody watching this live right now. Shout out to the people watching on replay as well. Regardless of how you're watching this or when you're watching this, you have the ability to help the channel get bigger. So by staying engaged with the content through likes, subscriptions, comments, being active in the chat, sharing the videos, whatever it is, these are all forms of content that help YouTube's algorithm realize that this is content it should push to other people on YouTube. So by supporting the content, you help push the channel to grow and get bigger. So if you enjoy what you're watching, make sure you do that. And if you don't enjoy what you're watching and you're just here because you're supporting me as a member of Sarcasm City, still support anyways, because obviously the bigger this channel gets, one day I'm going to start to also be able to bring people to Flawless's channel, and just the whole ecosystem as a whole benefits from us all growing. So major shout out to everybody that's watching. And I'll get into this last team and then we'll be out of here. So Um, Isaiah Hodgins is one of their receivers. They have honestly such a weird receiving room. They've added Paris Campbell and Jalen Hyatt, and like there's just so much redundancy in skill sets here. Like Isaiah Hodgins is unique as a big physical receiver, but the rest of the guys here, it feels like there's just like a bunch of slot receiver esque players from like a skill set standpoint. So like everybody here is going to get open in like 5 yards, but can anybody here stretch the field? Um, does it even necessarily make sense to pursue players that stretch the field? Because like Daniel Jones has his limitations as a quarterback. Uh, is it smart to build a offense with this much redundancy at the receiver position? Because Daniel Jones needs these kind of weapons because he can't be relied upon to hit throws 30 to 40 yards down the field. The stuff inside 5 to 10 yards is maybe that should be what he's asked to do consistently, because that's what you can rely on. But the receiving core, like again, if you talk about total sum of talent, I like it, but just like the kind of profiles they've put together, I think is really weird. But like I said, like I like Jalen Hyatt, I like Wandell Robinson, Sterling Shepard is cool, Darius Slayton's cool. Literally everybody here is good, but like, what is the point of having like 5 to 6 versions of the same player, and they're just all good? It's not like 5 to 6 versions of the same elite player. They're just good players, but we'll see how that works. That's definitely something to watch. I'm just very curious as to what Dayball has in store for this unit, but be interesting to see. The offensive line, it should be better next year because part of what they have are two young tackles that should get better because they're older. And then John Michael Schmitz is supposed to be a very good center. So, despite the fact that he's a rookie, he apparently has potential to be like a Creed Humphrey in terms of being a very solid center out of the right at the start of his career. So the offensive line should be better. Obviously, they have Darren Waller. That's the added weapon that I think is like the serious addition because it's different and it's unique. He's going to get open in 5 to 10 yards in a very different way. But obviously, yeah, that's something that they don't have much of. And Saquon is the running back. So that's continuity from last year. I think as a whole, this offense is better than it was last year. I don't think it's better by much, but it's definitely better. Um, it's a tough thing with the Giants because last year I feel like they were such a lucky team. They won so many more wins last year than they probably should have. That I feel like even though they got better, there's a chance that they win either the same amount of games, maybe even less, because they're just not as lucky this year. When you win that many one score games in those kind of circumstances, and you like just consistently win games that tend to go 50-50, you might experience bad luck the next year in those same kind of games, and your record could be worse, even though you're just a similar team. So in my case, I think they're going to be a better team. We'll still have to see if they get more wins. But yeah, again, like this is an offense that has so much continuity. It's the same offense but you add John Michael Schmitz, you add Darren Waller, and you add Paris Campbell. And then, of course, Jalen Hyatt, but I don't think he'll play much because, again, they have a lot of weapons. They have a lot of receivers, right? They might choose to play the more veteran receivers. So that's the offense. We'll get to the defense, obviously run by Wink Martindale. Wink Martindale is one of the most easy to rely on defensive coordinators. His resume is stacked. You know what you're getting with him, and you know you're getting a very good defense. So they have Ashawn Robinson up top that they added. I think they added Isaiah Simmons, and who else? All the other vets on this roster, I think, are the same. They added Deontay Banks in the draft. As of right now, it shows that they're going to be starting Trey Hawkins as effectively like their nickel corner, kicking Adoree into the slot. So like again, a lot of continuity. I think the pieces they added, I don't think actually have the potential to make them much bigger. Like I think Ashawn Robinson makes you better, maybe increases your floor as a unit a little bit, but I don't think it makes them substantially better in terms of ceiling. I feel the same way about Isaiah Simmons. I think maybe it's Bobby Okereke that's new, but yeah, it's a team that again, like this side of the ball, I think similar to the other side of the ball in terms of they did get better, but how much better did they get? Did they enter like a different stratosphere as a team? No, I think they're the similar team, as in they're one of the better teams in the NFC, but that's because the NFC is not a strong conference, and they could have a chance against some teams, but like at the very end of the day, when this team ran into the Eagles last year, what happened? Like their level, they're the fact that they can't compete with the very top of the NFL was shown made clear, right? And that's just where they're at as a team. I don't think they can compete with the very top of the NFL, but they could maybe compete with like the the rest of the league, right? They could, if they get lucky, as they did a lot last year, they could beat anybody else. But when it comes to real Super Bowl contenders, this team will fall short because they just don't have enough. And they did very little to change that. I think they got a little bit better in some areas that aren't like substantial, but at the end of the day, right, like your quarterback is still Daniel Jones, right? Your best receiving weapon as of right now is still what, like Isaiah Hodgins, like Darren Waller, tight end. Yes, he's good. So it's like Darren Waller, yeah, he deserves the respect, but like even from your wide receiver position is like that's something different, right? Like you look at Baltimore, yes, they had Mark Andrews, but they still realized at some point that like just because your tight end is almost as good as a wide receiver one doesn't mean that that's fine. You need to actually go get a good wide receiver. They're in that same kind of a position where, like, yeah, you have Darren Waller, but you still don't have much going on in the way of a wide receiver. You look at the team in the secondary. They had Julian Love last year, who played a lot. I don't think they've actually even replaced him. It says that they're playing Jason Pinnock, who I've never heard of before, and he was on waivers from the Jets. Doesn't seem like they replaced him. Again, they added a linebacker. That's cool. They added Ashawn Robinson. Uh, we'll see how good Deontay Banks is early. But like, yeah, like they're just a better version of last year. So in this team, I look at very similarly to the Commanders. The Commanders and Giants are both more or less what they were last year, but a little bit better. We'll see how that translates to the win column. But as a football team, they're both a little bit better. So it'll be interesting to see how things go in this division. I asked a question in the title. Wait, is the Eagles being the first? Yeah. So, yeah, the Eagles to be the first repeat champions in 19 years. This division has not seen a repeat winner in the last 19 years. Obviously, the Eagles won last year. I'm thinking they're going to win again and they're going to become the repeat champions, the first ones in 19 years. Because, again, I don't think the Giants got I don't think they got good enough to compete. I don't think Washington got good enough to compete. I think Dallas is pretty good, but something's gonna go wrong for them because it always does. And I trust that the Eagles are gonna stay at a very high level, so I still have them winning. I'm gonna put my divisional prediction in the chat and then put it on the screen so that people know very clearly where I'm at. So we got the Eagles first, the Cowboys second, you know what? It's got to change, right? It's got to change. So Commanders 4-3, Giants 4. So people, this is my official prediction that I'll put in here, and then I'll revisit this at the end of the season. But this is where I'm at. If you've been watching this and you watch the NFL, you can put your prediction in the chat. I've got to the end of what I have to speak about. So if the chat has any questions or anything that could get the stream to continue, I'll happily do that. But with that being said, people, I did the stream now. I was doing a stream earlier on my other channel. So my other channel is Toronto Hoop Talk. I will be dropping a link to the channel in the chat for you guys to go check out. So I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with the fact that I have a second channel where I talk about the NBA. Okay, wow. Okay, audio started playing out of nowhere. I was a little bit caught off guard. But yeah, people, this is my other channel, Toronto Hoop Talk. I talk about basketball there. I talk about it again with a lot of the people from Sarcasm City. I just did a whole live stream with Eddie from Sarcasm City where we talked about the FIBA Basketball World Cup. So the people that are checking out this content here that maybe don't take an interest in the content but just want to support Sarcasm City, you have another opportunity to do so with with Toronto Hoop Talk, which is my basketball channel. So I'm there doing similar style content. Make sure you check it out. Same rule applies there to here, man. Make sure you like the videos when you watch them. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. These are, again, all forms of engagement that help YouTube channels grow. And the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the ecosystem benefits from as a whole. So on my way out, again, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Obviously, 60 plus people chilled with me the whole time. I definitely appreciate that. And stay tuned in, people, because more content is coming.